Well, that was Philip Hammond talking to Mark earlier. Now, the decades-long soap opera in which the Church of England decides whether women are capable of spiritual leadership, one of the rare examples of a soap opera continuing in production year after year, despite the fact that audiences are falling through the floor, staged a new episode today. The end is at last in sight, apparently, and sooner than many had predicted too. For a vote in the C of E General Synod will halve the time the Church has to spend consulting on whether having a pair of breasts disables you from being a bishop. The first female bishop could now be appointed by the end of the year. Well, I'm joined now by the Reverend Rose Hudson-Wilkin, Chaplain to Parliament, and by Susie Leafe, who's Director of the Evangelical Campaign Group Reform and a lay member of the General Synod. Is that a fair summary of where we are on this?
I don't know if I go along with soap opera, but I will let you have your day.
Fair enough. But it could happen by the end of the year, the first female bishop.
It could. I do believe in miracles. So who knows?
Do you think it's going to happen by the end of the year?
It could do, but we've got to wait. We've got to wait for the diocese to vote. We've got to wait for Synod to vote. And I wouldn't like to, put a bet on it.
It has stopped the opponents dragging this out interminably, hasn't it?
I don't think the opponents have been dragging it out interminably. I think that there has been a desire for a very long time for us to find a solution, which means that the Church of England can remain the broad church that it's always been.
It's been square pegs and round holes, which just does not fit together. And it has been going on for a very, very long time. Perhaps the end is nigh. The reality is the diocese spent a long time already discussing it. 42 out of 44 dioceses said yes. And even in the 2 dioceses that didn't say yes, the majority of people did want it. So, I'm delighted that we're finding a way through in this process to make it possible.
And are you going to give up the ghost now? Or?
Absolutely not. I think the really important thing to remember is this is about theological conviction. It's about, for me, I represent a part of the church that's growing. We certainly don't see falling numbers. We're seeing our congregations growing. We're having to start new congregations and new churches. So I don't think we're going anywhere.
Aren't you a bit bored with the way the Church of England is just obsessed with sex and gender issues?
I don't think the Church of England is obsessed by those things. I mean, personally, we're obsessed by Jesus Christ. You may only get us to come on Newsnight to talk about sex and gender, but we preach Christ each week, week in, week out. It's great.
And you genuinely see your congregations increasing?
Absolutely. It's fantastic, yes. The churches I represent, 30% of them have planted a new church or a new congregation in the last 10 years.
I don't belong to any boxes that says I am this tradition or that tradition, and I'm also seeing growth.
Right.
The spirit is moving, really is moving, and I just think we have spent an enormous amount of time debating this issue, and it's about time that we move on to more important things.
How much damage did the vote last time against women bishops do you think? Huge
damage. The church looked absolutely ridiculous. It really did. It looked ridiculous, it looked irrelevant, and I hope that we can redeem ourselves.
Well, then how do you explain the fact that congregations seem to be growing where this doctrine of not having women clergy and bishops is preached?
Well, my experience in many places in this country and elsewhere is that very often the leadership of the church is the one that pushes this. And the people in the congregation are not necessarily in tune with what. The message is there in terms of, as she says, we're preaching Jesus, but in terms of women, not having women in leadership, it is not always the congregation that is pushing it.
I think that's an incredibly patronising tone, to be honest. I think we are very lay-led in our church, and certainly there are people within our church...
Lay-led but not female-led, is that right?
We have...
Why isn't she fit to be a bishop? She looks perfectly
never-
Well, I think one of the
Laymen, but
important
not
elements...
female-led.
I
Is
think-
that what you were saying?
I think we have male and female leaders within our
do?
church, but the final incumbent, the incumbent is a man. And this is part of the, one of the nonsenses of the legislation that we've been looking at today is that the canons will say that the women bishops are fathers in God. We can't change that. And personally, I find it very difficult. Rose, you can be many things, but I can't see you being a father.
Well, I think we're playing with words there. I really do. I think and I think that is irrelevant. We're all made in God's image, both male and female. And if we're made in God's image, then God is a part of who we are. We're a part of God. So that's not a problem for me. It really isn't a problem what people call me.
I think God created us, male and female, and he wonderfully, I mean, it's typical of the Church of England that just as the rest of society is recognising that men and women have different gifts and bring different things to the table and need to be used in different ways, the Church of England is finally in the 60s burning bras and trying to be a feminist.
The Church has always recognised that we come to the table with different roles. We're not trying to be men. We're not, I'm actually disturbed by what you've just said. It doesn't make any sense. I think the church is trying to live in this world, not in the past.
All right, we're going to leave it there. Thank you both very much.